What is up, Queens and Kings? It's your girl, Marshella Thomas, and thank you for tuning into Real Topics. In today's podcast, we're going to be diving deep into the topic on spirituality. Okay, but before we do that, I have a very special guest joining me in today's discussion. He's an international speaker, global business consultant, gentle ambassador. Mr. Warren Winston is in the building, everyone. How are you?
I'm fine. I was trying to figure out who you were talking about for a second there.
We're talking about you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that introduction. Thank you for those kind words. I really do appreciate it. Really do appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for joining the podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely. Well, as soon as you asked me, I said, I'm ready to go. Let's go. Let's do this.
I love that.
All right. Sure.
So I said this before when talking to Miss Latricia and Miss Centrell. I felt like that no one can introduce you the way that you can introduce yourself, or whatever light that you want to shine on yourself and all that you do. So in this moment, can you please just introduce yourself to the people who may not know who you are?
Sure, absolutely. My name is Warren Winston. I prefer to say that I'm always doing business unusual.
Okay.
Because I don't like to do things the way that most people do. Part of that is because, and that's why I'm very interested and very excited about the subject, because a lot of what I do has a spiritual base to it. And so that's why I say I don't do business unusual. We have a tendency of conforming to the things of the way the world wants it, but from a spiritual side, there's always a different way of doing it. And sometimes it means that you've got to literally shut down and take a moment to kind of meditate and let guidance come from above. And by doing that, that gives you the wisdom and the ability to have impact the way you want to have impact. And sometimes it's not the way you want to have impact, but the guidance comes from there. So I've been doing that. I've been consulting internationally for about 20 years now. Even though I'm only about 21, but so yeah, I've been doing that for about 20 years or so. And what I find is that no matter how much we talk about business or how much we interact with people, whether it's on the physical or the emotional or the mental level, the spiritual base is what generally guides us in those conversations. And I don't care what faith you are, I don't care what you believe. I have a saying that you could even believe in that your God is a head of lettuce. It doesn't matter to me. The reality is that the spiritual base is generally the foundation of everything that we do, because we're all spirit beings. We're not just human beings, we're spirit beings first, and that is where we have a tendency of disconnecting from ourselves and not understanding. The spirit side of us is what should drive us, not what we think or what others think of us. So that's kind of how I've been. I've been doing that, like I said, for close to 20 years, and I've had some successes, I've had some failures, but even if I consider a failure, it's still a success. Because the reality is, in some way, shape, or form, not only was I being blessed, but somebody else was being blessed by it. So I've never seen a winner not fail. Yeah. So I guess I'm a big winner because I failed more than I've won. And so that's okay. Because ultimately, in the end, I know the prize is greater and the reward is greater. So that's kind of a little bit about me and what I believe.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Sure.
So before we even get started with the questions, I normally take the time to give gratitude to people because of who they are and what they do. I've only been knowing you for a very short amount of time, but I can already sense your energy being very uplifted and fun and welcoming and warm. So I just want to take the time out to give gratitude to you.
Oh, well, my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. And but you're also full of energy. And I'm a firm believer that light brings light. Light also will overwhelm the dark. So even if there's somebody that's negative, your positive energy is going to outweigh the negative. So when you've got two light forces, the two light forces come together, it shines even brighter. So, you bring energy to me as well every time I see you, and so I appreciate you as well.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. So you kind of answered the first question already, but we're gonna let you reiterate that.
Sure.
So do you believe we are spiritual beings having a human experience, or human beings having a spiritual experience?
Definitely spiritual beings having a human experience.
Okay.
And the reason being is because we were all formed before we were formed. That's probably the best way of putting it.
Okay.
So we were created before we even knew we existed. There's never a situation where we know exactly what's going on. There's never a situation in our life where we know exactly how it's going to play out. And if you are a spiritual being, you're not going to know the whole story. Whereas the human being wants to know the whole story. The human being wants to know the beginning, the middle, and the end. The spiritual being just goes for the ride and just has to believe that it's all going to work out. And so that's so that's why I believe that we're all spiritual beings. We can plan all we want in terms of where we want to go. We can say we can create our own destiny. But the spiritual being side says you can try all you want. You don't create the destiny. Yeah. The spiritual side, or the spiritual side says the destiny was already predestined for you before you even knew it existed. So this conversation that we're having, the spiritual side says that this happened 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago. It was already planned. It was predestined for me to know you at this time, specifically at this time. The human being side would have said, this is impossible. It's hard to believe it would happen. So that's why I say we're definitely spiritual beings in a human experience versus the human experience, or human beings being in a spiritual experience.
And what do you think, it's interesting, that point of view, what do you think differentiates the two from someone having the perspective of seeing us as human beings first, having a spiritual experience, versus spiritual beings having it?
I think it's a level of faith and beliefs in your belief system. Yeah. The human being belief system is kind of closed-minded. It's a closed fist. Mm-hmm. You can only see as far as you can see. I know that's an oxymoron, but you understand what I'm saying. You can only see as far as you can see. Whereas the spiritual side, the impossible is possible.
Ooh, yeah.
From the spiritual side, the impossible is possible. I don't question anybody's faith, but you'll notice that I'm wearing a mustard seed.
Okay. No, I didn't know that.
Oh, well, there you go. I'm wearing a mustard seed, and I always wear the mustard seed because the mustard seed is the smallest seed known to mankind. But yet, it can produce one of the largest, greatest bushes, or it's almost like a tree, of great magnitude. And so I look at it as from a faith system. If I have faith the size of that mustard seed, then I can move and do things that's almost impossible, or literally impossible. Yeah. So that's my reminder that everything is possible, that there's no such thing as impossible. Impossible is a man-made word. The Creator says that all things are possible. So, because the Creator says all things are possible, all things are possible. And that's the spiritual side that says, I can do anything. I can move mountains. I can change the way things happen around me. I can change conversations. I can take a negative and make it a positive. I can take a positive and make it a negative, because all things are possible.
All things are possible. Wow. That is so beautiful. And I love the fact how you just said, when you're spiritual, you see the impossible as possible, and that's like really a key point, because like when you believe that there's this greater source, you have this greater purpose in life than any box that someone can put you in. You automatically see things differently, and you automatically look at the things that people say, like, maybe you can't do this, maybe
Correct.
You can't do that. Oh, I know that I'm just in this body for the time being, so I know there's nothing that I can't do. Like
Correct.
When you're living in that space.
And I'll share a part of a story that I've had on more than one occasion, situations that literally seemed impossible. That people would go, I don't know how you're going to get out of this one. You're in for it now. And I said, no, it's not done yet. And when the shift took place and they literally watched the impossible become possible, and they go, I can't believe that you were able to get through that situation. How did that happen? And I tell them, because I believe that all things are possible. And because I believed it, it manifested. That's why we also have to be careful about what we say.
I just had an interesting conversation with Miss Centrell about when we speak things. Like
we speak those things. In my favorite book, it says we speak those things that are not as though they were. So we have to say what. There's another part in the book. It says that you shall decree a thing and it shall be established. It's another way of saying you shall have what you say. So if you say that you don't have any money, you won't have any money. If you say that I'm wealthy, you're wealthy. I don't care if you've got a penny in your pocket, you're wealthy. Because you could have no money in your pocket. But people are always walking around. How many people do you know walk around saying that they're broke? And then they say, when I get out of the situation. Well, you're not going to get out of the situation if you keep telling that you're broke. Yeah.
That's so true. That's so true. And I'm in the, I love the fact that you're even bringing that up in conversation right now, because I'm in transition of, I told Miss Centrell even, I'm like 1 year, a little over 1 year, more leaning towards the spiritual side and really understanding how my thoughts really manifest the things that I want in life. And so to hear you say that, when you give power to, if you say that you're broke, then that's what you're going to be. Whatever you're giving energy to every day, whatever your thought, whatever you're thinking about all the time. What else can you expect to be?
And here's the thing. Yeah. We give power to a lot of things and we just don't realize it. Not only in our words, but in our actions. Think about the people that you hang out with. I'll venture to say that the folks that you hang out with are just like you, depending on what you are putting out. So if you're putting out negative vibes, 9 out of those other 9 people, you're all going to be the same. As soon as you start to change the vibration of your relationships and what you say and what you do and how you act, it all changes. The people will start to drop off. The people will start to change. The words start to change. The actions start to change. Does it make sense? So that's where we have to be careful, because it's not only what we say, it's what we do. Because even when we speak, we're speaking to our own spirit. And when we speak negatively into our own spirit, that causes us to live what we speak. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
Think who's with you more than you? No one.
No one.
So even though there are others that will speak into you or attempt to speak into you, we can negate what they say and say, you know what, I don't receive that. But if you're speaking into yourself every day those same negative vibes or those vibrations, what happens? You're speaking into your own spirit. And by speaking into yourself, you are latching on to it. So that's why I can stand up every morning and I says, you know what, I'm a well man. Even if my bones are aching, I'm a well man. Yeah. My mind is sharp. I've got wisdom. I've got the knowledge that I need. That I thank you, God, every day for rising up men and women who will use their name, their credibility, their influence, and yes, even their finances to make things happen on my behalf. Yeah. So what happens every day? Every day I'm going to find somebody who's going to use their name, their credibility, their influence, and in many instances their finances, because I speak it into existence.
Wow. I love that. And it's so true. Mm-hmm. But even me being in the place that I am, and me hearing that from you, I'm understanding it in a different way now that you haven't.
Let me just say this to you, because we all go through transition. All of us. Some of us go through it tougher than others. How we get out of transition is how we respond to the way we think about it. And the first way to get out of that transitional period is to speak into our own life. So if I say I'm in this transition, and literally I've been there more than once, and it says this is temporary. This is only temporary. Well, but you've been like this for months. It's temporary. Where are you going tomorrow? All is well. Everything is fine. Well, that's what you say. Yes, and I shall have what I say. And so if I say it's well, it's well. Yeah. If I say it's bad, it's bad. So you have to, even with in the transitional period, there's always good in transition, because in many instances, that's your reminder to say, I've been there, I've experienced it, I learned from it, now I can move on from it. And in other instances, that transition was necessary because I wouldn't have grown if I didn't go through it. You see?
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
There's the word growing pains for a reason. We talk about growing pains. Growing pains, there really is truth in growing pains, because as we grow, it's a painful process. Change is part of that process, and change has never been comfortable.
Yeah, my friend was just talking to me about that. Like that's change. Like change is uncomfortable.
Yet, it happens every day. Yeah. It happens every second. What we talked about 30 seconds ago has already changed.
Yeah. Interesting.
Life has already changed.
Yeah.
Something has happened in that 30 seconds. Even if it was, I'm just using an example, our hair has grown in 30 seconds.
Right.
It changed. How we see things, how we hear things, how we react to things, it has changed. And yet, we're so uncomfortable with it, yet it happens every second of every day. So to go back to the spiritual side of that, knowing that all things are possible, it allows me to embrace the change.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing with all of us.
Sure.
So I want to get into this quote that I read from a post from the University of Minnesota's blog. The blog is called Taking Charge of Your Health and Well-Being. And they are not sponsors, just have to say that. This quote is from Amy R. Krentzman, and it says, while spirituality may incorporate elements of religion, it is generally a broader concept. Religion and spirituality are not the same thing, nor are they entirely distinct from one another. What are your thoughts on this?
Agree. We have a tendency, and I say we as a society, as a worldly society, we have attached religion as the main thing. But that doesn't necessarily mean that is the way that we are to grow. Doesn't mean that that's the ultimate answer. I go back to the statement that I said that, there are different people that have different beliefs. They have different beliefs from me, and that's fine. But what I can find time after time after time, that whether you are believing in Jesus Christ, or you're believing in Buddha, or you're believing in Muhammad, or you're believing in any other religion or other faith, that there is a common denominator, and I can hold a conversation with you and you can go, yeah, well, that's what I believe. Yes, that's what I believe. Yes, that's what I believe. And it's not so much the religion as much as the spiritual side of things. Does that make sense? So that's where I think there's the disconnect, because there's a major disconnect, I think, taking place in the world as a whole, because everybody is trying to, I can probably get in trouble for saying it this way, but I'm going to say it. There's a lot of folks that are trying to connect you to a certain religion versus trying to connect you on the spiritual realm of things. And if we all took the time to focus on the spiritual realm of things, then that could lead into a discussion that could lead us into determining why we have wars or why we shouldn't have wars. That can determine why we have animosity towards one man and not another man. Because we put it in the name of religion, but it's not religion at all. Let me rephrase that. We put it in the name of religion, and by putting it in the name of religion, that's what causes the problem. But if we looked at each other, going back to identifying each other as spiritual beings, spirit has no color. Spirit has no creed. Spirit has no national origin. Spirit is spirit, period. And so that's part of the problem, because we want to put things identified under a certain religion. And that becomes the major problem. So I'll go back to, should we negate religion? I'm not going to say we're going to negate it. But I think if we identify it on the spiritual realm of things and say, I feel your spirit. And I don't know, what's going on, but because I feel your spirit, let me just say this to you, that everything is going to be well, that everything that you might be going through is just a temporary season. And I don't know what it is. I don't need to know what it is. I don't know when you're going to get out of a situation, but I got you, my sister. That's the spirit talking to the spirit. In fact, let's be real. The more you're on a spiritual realm, spirit knows spirit. Have you ever had a situation where you just met somebody and you go, there's something about them, they just don't feel good. There's something about them I don't know, because their spirit is rocking your spirit. Spirit knows spirit. Humans don't know humans. But spirit knows spirit. And so that's how these connections take place. Connect to you through spirit. I connect to Miss Centrell through spirit. I connect to the BSM twins, as I like to call them, through spirit. That's the connection. It's not so much what I know about them, because there are instances I don't know anything about them, about these folks. But the spirit knows the spirit of the person. Does that make sense? Yes. So.
Wow. Yes. It makes perfect sense. The spirit knows spirit. That's very important to note. That's how we form our bonds.
It really is. So I keep going back to what you're saying, human versus spiritual beings. Now you understand where I go. We're spiritual beings, because all of this is not based off of the human mind and what we think. It is based off of what we receive from the spiritual side. The spiritual realm speaks first. The human side wants to think about it. The spiritual side doesn't have to think about it. It only reacts to it. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So I have personally had my fair share of being religious, spiritual, in between. I don't know. But if I'm a person listening to this podcast and I'm either spiritual or religious or neither, is there still a message for me?
Sure. The message is simply this. I don't care, again, what religion. Know that you were fearfully and wonderfully made. Know that you are here for a purpose. And that's the the message. Everybody's here for a purpose. You're not here just to exist. You're not here just to satisfy you, because it's not about you. That's the real message. You're here for a reason. And whatever that reason is, fulfill it and do it to the best of your ability. Now, some people spend an entire lifetime trying to figure out what it is. Some of them never accomplish it. I've said more than once that the richest area in the entire world is the graveyard. Because that's an area where there are so many unfulfilled dreams and so many ideas and so many opportunities to change the world were buried because nobody ever moved on it. And so because we do have a purpose, whatever it is, I don't care if you are 4 months old, 4 years old, 40 years old, 400 years old. Try to find out what it is, because it's never too late to fulfill it.
There's never too late, and there's always room.
There's always room. Absolutely. Always.
I think that's kind of, in my experience with just conversing with people, what holds them back is that they see other people doing it, and they're like, oh, well, they're already doing that thing, so there's no room for me.
And see, this is the thing. We're all unique in our own way. We were created to be unique. There is no one like you. There will never be anyone like you. I don't care if you are a twin. I don't care if you're a triplet, quadruplet. You're still unique. Yeah. You are different than your siblings. Yeah. And so because of that, you can do the same thing as somebody else. But there's a difference, and I'm going to get a little bit deeper now. There's a difference between the gifting and the anointing. Okay? Everybody has a certain gift, but not everybody has the same anointing.
You want to dive deeper
okay.
into that?
So, yeah, okay. So, gifting is generally something that we've all been, it's part of our DNA. Mm-hmm. Part of my gifting is that my level of faith is very strong. Mm-hmm. Another part of my gifting is that I have the gift of wisdom. Those are two things that I have. The other gift, I have 3 gifts. The other one is that I am a very good encourager. I am an encourager. Mm-hmm. Those are my gifts. Mm-hmm. There are others that can have the same gift, but we're not going to operate the same way. Yep. Because I'm anointed to do it one way. Mm-hmm. They're anointed to do it another way. And so the gifting could be the same, but the anointing is different.
And that's what makes us unique.
That's what makes us unique. Yeah. And see, that's where people fail, because they go, well, they're doing the same thing. But the reality is you might have the same gifts, but you're not anointed to do the same thing. You might be anointed to sit down and talk to a whole bunch of, we'll go the opposite. Your anointing might be to deal with men. Mm-hmm. My anointing might be to deal with women. Right. But we still have the same gift. Right. But my anointing drives me towards another group. Your anointing goes to the direct opposite. And says, well, that's not, but that doesn't make sense. Oh, it all makes sense, because again, it's all part of the spiritual path that we have. Yeah. We don't know what it is. See? So that's why I say, that's why it's important that we don't suppress, what we have in us. Because by suppressing it, all you're doing is holding back something that you were ordained to do in the first place.
Yeah, that's yeah. You hit it right on. That's all we do. That's all we do.
Yeah.
So, in moving along, in all that you do with everything, speaking, consulting, being an ambassador, a gentleman ambassador, that is. How do you balance spirituality and work?
Well, that's a very good question. That's really a very good question. Here's how I like to, this is how I like to address it. The spiritual side is the foundation for me. And because it's the foundation, it makes it very easy to balance the rest of it. By being spiritual and using that as the foundation, I just build from there. So everything that I do has a spiritual base to it. Every program, every meeting, every opportunity to connect with somebody, I'm essentially using those same gifts, the gift of faith, the gift of wisdom, the gift of encouragement, as my business model to help someone else. See, so it doesn't change. The spiritual gift is in place. The anointing is already in place. That's how I'm able to balance it. When things get tight, I get to the point I say, okay, I have to take a step back. And then I just shut it down, and I just call that quiet time. I get into that quiet time, and I do more listening than I do talking. Okay? So from a spiritual side, we don't think about that. And, we pray to our Creator and say, can you help me? 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 But in the meantime, if you just shut down and shut up for a minute, you would realize that he's been trying to help you. He or she has been trying to help you from the very beginning. You just weren't quiet enough to hear it.
Sit down and shut up.
Sit down and shut up.
Yeah,
Just stay quiet. A perfect example, and this is the truth. Okay. This weekend, I had some things going on, and I spent part of the weekend, I just shut it down. I didn't connect with anybody. I didn't get on the phone. I didn't get on the internet. I didn't watch television. I just literally shut it down and kept quiet and got my revelation that way. And then I was able to move forward. Now, there are times where you still might not have all the answers, but at least I was sat still long enough to know the direction that I needed to go in and some of the things I needed to do. So that's really what it boils down to. How do I balance it? Faith is my foundation. The spiritual side is truly my foundation. Everything after that is secondary. Everything.
Easy. Did everyone hear that? Did you hear that?
That's it. Because again, we're spirit beings. Yeah, so if I'm a spirit being and I use my spiritual side as the foundation, it solves a whole lot. It stops a whole lot of headaches. Yeah. Because then it's not about what I want to do. It's the spiritual side of me that guides me and directs me. So that's what makes it a lot easier. I didn't say it was going to be easy. It makes it a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. It's a difference.
There's a difference. Oh,
There's a difference.
Absolutely.
And so, in saying that, how do you think spirituality can change lives? Changes your life personally?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you. I'm a man full of stories.
Okay.
And I'm going back quite a few years where everything that I did not have a spiritual side to it. It didn't have a spiritual base to it. Juggling everything from children and marriage, I would say marriages, children, marriage, jobs, family, home, the whole 9 yards. And I was all about, and there really wasn't a spiritual side. I was just doing. And life was good, but life really wasn't good. And then when, as I say, the wheels started to fall off the bus, that's when I tried to hold on to everything. It became a juggling act. And if you don't know how to juggle, you know how quickly those balls will drop. Yeah. Or if you've ever seen the act with the plate spinners, when you're trying to keep all the plates up, you realize that it's not as easy as you think. And so when I got to that point, I became broken. I became bitter in some instances. I got to the point where I said, this is ridiculous. But this was also, again, about speaking your words, the power of the words. I also said, I can't do it by myself anymore. I can't do it. I said, I'm tired, I can't do it. And once I said that allowed the spiritual side to take over just like that. And once that happened, then I was able to have things. Now, here's the deal. You can say it, but you got to believe it.
Woo.
You understand what I'm saying? You can say it, but then you got to back it up with action. Miss Centrell's an action coach. She'll tell you in a minute. So your actions got to speak louder than those words. And in this case, when I said it, I meant it. And so when I said I'm done, I literally said I was done. Now here's the deal. This is the truth. The day I said it was also the same day that I received multiple blows that would have normally knocked me out because I would have tried to handle it myself. Yeah. But because I said I let it go, I just went, okay. And it didn't knock me out. It made me stronger. I became stronger because I wasn't in control of it. I said, I'm letting it go. And once I let it go, things started to happen and they started to move in the direction that I wasn't expecting, moving in areas that if I held on to it, it just would have been messier. But I didn't hold on to it. I literally said, I'm done. I'm done. So that is the key to this. If you're going to say it, you better move on it. You better believe it. Yeah. And so that's how I was able to get through, many situations. So I got so many stories to tell you about how the spiritual side literally has saved my life. Literally has saved my life. So even when I wasn't spiritual, the spiritual side still saved my life.
Yeah.
It is. Mm-hmm.
It's crazy beautiful. Yeah, even that testimony, and we all in our own ways have our very own of, getting knocked down and thinking that we can hold on to it and fix it ourselves, and we can do it if we just keep going.
Yeah,
just keep going. And sometimes you have to.
You got to let it go, because if you try to hold on to it, you can make a bigger mess of it. And when you make and then that's when it really becomes a major problem.
Yeah.
And then you want to let it go, but then you've already tied onto it, and you just can't let it go at all.
Yeah.
So it gets worse.
Yeah. Got to deal with it. You have to deal with it as soon as it happens, so it doesn't grow and fester and
exactly
bigger thing. And I think that's so critical, and that's so interesting that we brought this up in conversation again, because so many of us aren't even in that headspace to, first of all, realize what the problem is, and then realize that whatever that problem is, it probably is something from the past that we're still holding on to.
Exactly.
And we really have to let it go, like sincerely let it go.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
a lot of us, we don't let it go.
No, we want to hold on to it because we think we can fix it. And we can't fix it. It was never for us to fix it in the first place, but we think that we can fix it. And if we can do better than the person who created us, then, you're going to get the results. Because here's the reality. The creator knows exactly who we are. Yeah. He knows, or she knows, what we were designed for. Yeah. I use this analogy more often than not, and I take the example of two cars. You could take a car that's a Toyota, and you could take a car that's a Mercedes. They're both cars. They both have the purpose of being used a certain way. But when it's time to fix that car, would you take your Mercedes to the Toyota dealership?
Oh, no.
No. Would you take the Toyota to the Mercedes dealership?
No.
Why not? The reason being is because Toyota was manufactured specifically for a certain purpose. Right. Mercedes was manufactured specifically for a certain purpose. And even though they might be the same, only the manufacturer knows the purpose of the thing. So that's why when we have those challenges, it's better for us to go back to the manufacturer to find out versus trying to ask others, because they don't know the purpose of a thing. Only the manufacturer knows the purpose of a thing.
Wow, I love that. I love that. I think I'll remember that forever.
See?
Honestly. Yeah.
And so that's the reason this is the spiritual side. We often are trying to fix. But we don't take the time to go back to the manufacturer and say, well, what do I got to do to fix it?
Save you a lot of headaches.
Save you a lot of headaches.
A lot of headaches.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow, thank you.
So, sure.
Wow. Thank you. Okay, so another question. Is there a truth in a right in spirituality? And if so, what is that truth, or is it individual? Is it individual to that person?
That's an excellent question. I'm going to tell you what I believe.
Okay.
I believe that there is one truth. And I believe that there might be different interpretations of that truth, but there's still only one truth. The key is to determine what that truth is. Now, some folks will argue about it, but this kind of goes back to the purpose of a thing. And this goes back to religion versus the spiritual side, okay? But once we know what that truth is, only then we will be free to do what we need to do. That's why you hear about the truth will set you free. Yeah. There's only one truth. There aren't multiple truths, okay? The truth is that I'm sitting in this room right now speaking to you. Yeah. That's the truth, okay? I'm not sitting in any other room. I'm not talking to anybody else. Somebody can go and say, well, he really did this from here. No, there's only one truth.
Right.
And once we embrace that truth, then only then we'll be able to move forward and embrace other things that come our way. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So,
that makes
so yeah, that's what I believe. I believe there's only one truth. But getting to that truth can sometimes be the cog in the wheel, trying to understand what that truth is. But the only way you're going to get to that truth kind of goes back to what I've said also in what I said before. You have to sit still, shut up and sit still, so you can get to the truth.
Right. You have to, That's so important. Like, really, if you really want to hear the truth, or really want to learn the truth, know the truth for what it is, you really do have to sit down and get quiet. And it's interesting because so many of us, we say all of these things. We say. We speak. But a lot of the times we don't really mean what we speak.
No, we don't.
Like, honestly, like in many different ways. Even when I know having this conversation in college before about the words "I love you," and how you have some people who just say it to say it, and then some people say it and put action and meaning behind it.
That's it. We have become accustomed to saying things because it sounds like it's the right thing. And we don't back it up with our actions and what we do. So we say, I love you, because it sounds like it's the right thing. But love doesn't have hate towards another man or another woman. Love doesn't try to hurt. Love is not envious. It doesn't boast. It doesn't try to harm. It doesn't try to do any of those things. It is the most powerful thing on the face of the earth. And to show it can sometimes be the most difficult thing in the world. But a person will know it if the actions are true. So to say I love you is one thing. To show that I love you, is a different thing.
Yeah. I remember the quote, I'm really not sure who coined it, but people will forget what you look like, who you are, what you did for them, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
How you made them feel, exactly. And so when you talk about that gentleman ambassador side of me, we talk about what is a gentleman. A gentleman, if we were to define it from the ye old English way, is someone who not only respected but showed admiration towards the people around them, and particularly, a woman, and not in a lustful way. It was just to give honor to the person or persons that were around them. And so from my perspective, I'm always looking to do something and be different from the norm. So the gentleman's approach, whether it's business or whether it's life, I firmly believe in it. I get to the point where I get frustrated watching society today that has gotten away from so many different things. Things are accepted that, to me, shouldn't be accepted. I've literally had women who had taken offense to me holding a door for them, or holding a chair for them, or letting them get on an elevator first. And it wasn't a matter of independence. It's a matter of respecting and giving honor to who they really are. And so when you don't want to embrace that, it makes it easier for a man to discount what you should deserve. I'm not saying that I'm the most perfect guy in the world. I have my faults. But I also know that in this day and age, that society has made such a mess of so many different things that to be able to bring the gentleman back into the mainstream is really the best thing to do, because then life will start to change. And by the way, there's a spiritual side to that too, okay? The spiritual side is that the man should be the head. Doesn't mean that he's the one that's going to be the enforcer, but he is the one that has the wisdom to be able to support the woman and to do for the woman and to make sure that she's in a comfortable position and to make sure that she feels safe. And the gentleman part of that is important, because a woman's not going to feel safe if the gentleman doesn't make her feel like she's safe. Yeah. So that's part of it. The spiritual side says that that's where I'm supposed to, that's what we should do. Yeah. But the human side, the worldly side, the way we act today is, well, she's an independent woman. She's independent. Hey, she can pull out her own chair. Why I got to pull out her chair for? Yeah. Why do I got to hold the door for her? Yeah. Why do I have to open the door for her when she's getting in the car? She could open her own door. What's the problem? She can lift up she can lift up groceries too. And while she's at it, why can't she take care of those kids? I mean, that's the mentality. That's not the way it should be. It's not the way it should be. So the gentleman side, that whole perspective in terms of how we think and how we allow things to happen in our life. Again, words. Yeah. I don't need a man. Words. Then you go, I can't find a man. Well, you can't find a man because you said you don't need a man. You spoke it into existence. Really? You see? So I was literally early today. Women kept talking. Women was literally standing outside talking to this man, talking about, I can't find a man. I can't find a man. I don't know what she was talking. I was just passing by. Right. But as soon as she said that, she goes, well, I don't need them anyway. I'm going, well, there you go. That's why you can't find them.
Really. And people don't really understand how true that is.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So everything that we do, everything that we say, there are different components to it. I'm an independent woman. When you say you're an independent woman, I'm not knocking it, but when you say you're an independent woman, be prepared, because you're now an independent woman. You spoke it into existence. So you don't need anybody else's help. You spoke it into existence, so you don't need anybody else's help. I can't find anybody to help me, but you said you were an independent woman. But you spoke it into yourself, and because you spoke it, that's what you had. You shall have what you said. So.
Wow. Speaking to our spirits here. Yes. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
We have a true or false for you.
Uh-oh.
True or false? Excuse me. Mm-hmm. The South of the United States, that is more spiritual than any other region in the United States.
I don't believe that. The South, and this is a loaded true or false for me, because I was born in the North. I was born on the East Coast, grew up in New York, lived all up and down the East Coast from New York to D.C. Then I moved into the South, into Virginia and the Carolinas, and then back up into New York, and then moved down to Texas. So I've lived in six states, and I've seen both. And so if you're going to ask me if there is one group that's more spiritual than the other, I'm going to say no. Because I've gone into churches in New York City and in Baltimore, Maryland, and in Washington, D.C., and in places in Philadelphia, and I've watched the Spirit move in so many different ways that it would make your head spin. And yet I've gone into churches in Texas and in Florida and in Georgia, and it was dead. You couldn't get the Spirit to move even if you had put paddles on it. I mean, so it's not so much a North versus South thing. I think from a religious standpoint, there's a difference from the North versus the South, but not on the spiritual side. The religious side is you're going to talk about, well, this is the Bible Belt, and this is the Southern Baptist, and that's religion. See, that's religion. And when you start to look at it from and again, here's where I have the problem, because now I've created a dividing line.
A dividing line.
Because I'm a Southern Baptist. Well, you just put a division between a Northern Baptist, or a Midwestern Baptist, or just a Midwestern believer.
Not even speaking about the divide of religion and spirituality.
No, you just put a dividing line between something from the beginning. And so now I've got to decide as a human being, which one is the better deal? Am I better being a Southern Baptist or a Northern Muslim? Am I better being a Southern, a Western, from a Western Buddhist? Or is that better than an Eastern Buddhist? I mean, come on. That's really what you've done. You've created a dividing line. Whereas the spirit side, I just believe. I just believe. And it doesn't matter. I just believe. You're my brother. You're my sister. That's it. I don't care what color. I don't care what ethnic group. I don't care about any of that other stuff. We're one. The spirit side basically goes, I cut myself, you cut yourself. We got the same blood.
We got the same blood.
That's it. Same blood. That's it.
No,
so,
really,
yeah.
It's really all it is.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. Thank you.
Sure.
Again, I'm going to keep saying thank you. You're really dropping. There's some nuggets in this message, everyone. Please adhere to the words and the wisdom of Mr. Warren Wooster. So, when you, Mr. Warren, reach the end of this human experience as a spiritual being, what is the impact? What is the message that you leave behind with the world, with your specific and unique mark?
I think of the words of my father, and I get emotional when I think about it. My father died when I was young, but in his life, in the time that he lived, he always said to me, give the world the best you have and the best will come back to you. And so, I get emotional. That has been my mantle. That has been my mantra from day one. I'm going to give you 100%, 110%. Even though it's only 100%, I'm going to give you more than that. Right. I'm going to give you the best. And if I've given you the best, great. If I haven't, I'm sorry. I'm always out to give my best in everything that I do. You know, I think that your life is a report card. Your life is a report card. And at the end of the day, if people can say positive things about you genuinely, then you've done all right. You think about how many people, if you've ever passed a service where somebody was, they've gone on to the next realm, to glory. Yeah. And there might be two people there. You is it because they don't have any friends or what? Or you go to these others and you see thousands, hundreds and thousands of people there. Right. And it's not because they're a celebrity. It's not because they've been on television or radio. It's not because of anything except the fact that they've impacted somebody's life. So at the end of the day, that's all I care about. Somebody asked me recently, they said, what would it take for you to be a millionaire? They said, this is a tough question. What would it take for you to be a millionaire? And I said, that's not a tough question. They said, no. I said, no. They said, well, what would it take? I said, help 1 million people. Because if I got $1 for every person I helped, I'm a millionaire. So that's my goal, not to go out and make $1 million. My goal is to help 1 million people. Because if I can do that, think about this. If every person on the face of the earth consciously made a decision to help one person a day, that means in 1 year they've helped 365 people. And what if those 365 people did the same thing? We wouldn't be in the mess that we're in now. Because all we're doing is helping each other. There's an old movie, I don't know why. There's an old movie that I recommend anybody to see it. If you can find it, pull it up. It's called Pay It Forward. Pay It Forward. It's the story about this young kid who was given an assignment in school to do something that would change the world. And the teacher who gave the assignment gave it out every year. And everybody would always do the assignment, and every year it would not do anything. It wouldn't have an impact, and it was just like he was kind of getting frustrated, but he was given this assignment. And this one kid decided to help somebody. I'm kind of shortening the story. Mm-hmm. And then he said, all I want you to do is pay it forward. And it became a movement. So people who were homeless and, or destitute, people who didn't have anything, people who had everything, they all took the opportunity to pay it forward and make a difference in somebody else's life.
I gotta see this movie.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think they were talking 3 people, but all in all, I'm going back to, if we all just did it for one person, what would happen? We'd have a different world. Completely different world. So for me, it's all about how I can change somebody's life. And I don't mean change in a negative way, to be able to make a difference. I just read recently, somebody said, you can have, how would you treat, you can turn your back on the person. One person gave you $10, the other person gave you $20. But the person that gave you the $20 had $200, and the person that gave you $10 only had $10. Which one would you honor?
Oh, yeah, $10 for sure.
Yeah, but you don't know the difference. Right. See, this is what happens. There oftentimes we don't consider that the blessing because somebody wanted to pay it forward. They wanted to make a difference in your life. And we just go, pfft. They didn't help us. They gave you the last of what they had. They gave you the last of what they had. So I say all of that to say this. We want to impact the world. Give to the world the best you have. And I promise you the best will come back to you. I'm not saying I promise in a soft way. I'm saying it in a real way. Because I watched it happen in my life. I've given the last of my 10. I've given the last of my food. I've given to the point where I had nothing. I've given somebody my bed, my shoes, my clothes, and I'm not saying that to brag or to receive any accolades from it. But when I did that, that's when things moved. The spirit realm moved, and I went, why am I doing this? And even though I did it, I wasn't looking for any return. And when you're not looking for the return, that's when the greater reward comes. That's when you get the greatest return. When you're not looking for a return, you just do it because you're just doing it. I don't want anything from you. And people say, well, what do you want back? I don't want anything back. You want to make a difference? Do it for somebody else. So that's, you got me into the point. You even got me a little emotional there for a second. That's you shouldn't have done that. But yeah, that's really where I am on all of that. That's really where I am on all of that. To just, if they want to say something about me, that I gave the world the best. That's it. That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. It doesn't matter about the accessories, the tangible things. None of the tangible things matter.
I've had it all, and I've lost it all. And interestingly enough, there were moments when I had it all, and I was miserable. And there were times when I lost it all, and I felt like I was a millionaire. It's amazing that how you can have it all, and you feel miserable, but you can lose it all, and you feel like you got the best of everything. Life is grand. Even though you might be in the toughest time of your life, you're in the fight of your life, but life is good. So, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm where I'm supposed to be. Spiritually, I might not understand everything, but I understand everything. Does that make sense?
I like that. Yeah.
I might not understand, but I understand. And so that's where I am. That's what I do. There are days that I'm going, okay, what am I supposed to do today? And I just, okay, thank you. Here's the first thing. I'm going to give thanks. Why am I giving thanks? Because I was able to open my eyes. I took my first breath. I was able to turn my body, and I was able to put one foot on the floor and the other one. It's already a good day. It's all uphill from there. Or it's just, uphill. I say uphill. I don't want to say downhill, because everything worthwhile is uphill.
Oh, I love that.
Nothing is worthwhile is downhill. Everything worthwhile is uphill. But that's when you've got to fight, because uphill requires you to do work. Downhill doesn't take any work at all.
Woo! All of these are tweets, everyone. I'm going to come up with some tweets before the episode drops. Hold on. Woo! No, really. That's true. Really.
It is.
And true. Just true message all around the board.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
No, my pleasure.
Wow.
My pleasure.
Wow, I've learned so many things just in this one conversation. So many nuggets, so many messages resonate with me. Good. So many.
We all learn from each other.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
I won't have all the answers.
Right.
I say that I know where to get the answers, but I don't have all the answers. Again, in my favorite book is, and I don't know if I always agree with everything, but there's one that says, with much wisdom comes much grief. And so there are times where, because you have a lot of wisdom, there are certain times that it can pull on you, But the flip side to that is, the more knowledge you get, the better you become. Now, the key is not to keep it amongst yourself. The key is to share it with others and be open to others giving you the same wisdom and knowledge. How often do we run into a child who says something that's so profound, and yet we want to blow it off because it's only a child?
Right.
Even a child has wisdom.
Honestly.
Yeah. And so you can learn from a child. And so there are times when I listen to a child and I sit down and I'll have these conversations. You're childlike. Yeah, well, you know what? It's okay. That young child is dropping wisdom. It's dropping nuggets. And if you were to take the time to listen to them, you would understand. They're only saying it in the way they know how to say it. Yeah. But you'd be surprised at what you would get out of it. Mm-hmm.
Wow, we should start a show together with little kids and just talk to them.
Hey, that's it.
Because it's really true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's that choice, you taking the time and you choosing to not write it out.
Right.
You hear that child just as you would hear any other human being for who and what they are.
That's it. Yeah. And the thing is, they have no preconceived judgment in terms of anything. They're just doing. They're just being. And that's the reality. They're just being. We say we have wisdom, but we've gone through so many life experiences that we get to the point where we have to decipher what's true, what's not true, what's right and what's not right, what we believe and what we don't believe. They don't have that. Nothing except what it is. They just be. They don't have to think it. They don't have to even necessarily do it. They just be it.
We start building and shaping them in the way that we see fit.
And then that's when we ruin them. Yeah. And I'm just being open and honest. Yeah. That's when we ruin them. Yeah. As opposed to just being childlike and let them be and learn from just being and not from the other stuff.
Will and Jada Smith, they talked a lot about that and how incorporating that into how they raised Willow and Jaden and Trey. Yeah, that's powerful.
It is. That's powerful. I think, it's not like I want to beat up on my parents because they did that to me, but I get it because that's what we do as human beings. Mm-hmm. But let's go back to the spiritual side of things. How often have we watched a baby sitting and sleeping, and all of a sudden they're smiling? Well, that's the spirit side that's speaking to them. That's why they're smiling. It's not because of gas. The spirit side is speaking to them, and that's what they can embrace. They haven't learned anything from the human side. So the human side hasn't taught them anything. The spirit side is teaching them everything. And they're living as spirit beings. So they're just being. They're just being. Does that make sense?
Yes. It's all the same. It makes all the sense. So, in conclusion, I guess you could say, well, you kind of hit on this. I asked earlier, is there still a message for someone who isn't spiritual or, isn't spiritual or religious? I guess in the same manner, or kind of different, I guess you could say, is there a message for a person who doesn't have a belief at all? Is there still a message?
Yes, and it's this. The first message is that, again, we'll go back to you were not here just to exist. That's the first message. That's the first change in your belief system, that you're not here just to exist. You're here for a purpose. You might not understand it, but if you go back to the manufacturer to find out what that is, it'll make your life a lot better. I'm not going to say it's easier. It'll make your life a lot better. The second thing is that your belief system is tied to everything and anything that you do. If you believe that you are not capable of doing something, you can't do it. You won't do it. I don't know if it was, I'm trying to remember if it was Ford, but it says whether you think you can or think you can't, in either case you're right. It doesn't matter. So if you think you can't, you can't. If you think you can, you can. So that's part of it. Again, you might not believe that there is a God. I believe there's a God. I believe that there's a creator of heaven and earth. I believe that, we talk about the Big Bang Theory, but the reality is that I believe that there was a creator that created the Big Bang.
Right.
Okay? He said it, boom, it happened. I mean, that's really what I believe. But even if you don't believe that, we can continue to go through life believing that there isn't anybody that's created us, that we are human beings, that we evolved from atoms and things of that nature. But somebody had to create the atom. Something or someone had to create the atom. Something or someone had to create energy. And everything has energy. Money has energy. And people don't even realize how much energy money really has. But everything has energy. But who created the energy? It wasn't you, and it wasn't me. Something or someone created it. So even if we don't want to get into this theological way of believing things and, we want to get philosophical or whatever, that's fine. But it's all about what you believe. And if you don't believe that there is a higher being, okay, that's fine. But at some point, you're probably going to call out to that to that higher being when you get into a challenge. Yeah. Or something happens. Yeah. Or whatever the case may be. I'm not here to judge. Yeah. The religious side will judge. The spiritual side has no judgment. It's in no judgment zone for me. Who am I to judge you? If I judge you, then that makes me no better than the next person. I don't have a judgment zone. You are who you are. You do what you do. You live how you live. You believe what you believe. I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to encourage you. It comes back full circle. Yeah. And that's really what it's all about. It's about, the attitude of how your belief system, the attitude of that belief system Now it puts you in a position where you'll start to want to acquire more knowledge. And once you start to acquire the knowledge of that, then you want to get to the point where if you're really serious about it, you want to start to apply it and practice it. And once I practice it, it becomes a habit. The more the habit becomes, the more I have a better attitude. The more I have a better attitude, the more I want knowledge. The more I get knowledge, the more I want to practice it. The more I practice it, it becomes a habit. So yeah, it becomes a full circle from a spiritual side. Now, but this is what happens. Some people get an attitude. They get the attitude, this is what I believe, and then they want to get the knowledge of it, but then they don't apply it. And when they don't apply it, they get in that trap. So now they go, it doesn't work. If you don't apply it,
Of course it won't work.
I want to believe that I can lift 400 pounds. I want to believe it.
Yeah.
I want to believe that I've got a six pack and then I've got diesel and I'm built. But if I've never lifted a weight, I've got the right attitude.
Yeah.
I know what I need to do. But if I don't practice it, what good is it? And the more I practice, the more it becomes a habit. See, that's where people get into that trap. They get the knowledge, but they don't want to apply it. So, whether you believe or whether you don't believe, if you believe, great. Start applying that knowledge and start not only gather the knowledge, but start applying it by practicing it. Once a day. Read 15 minutes a day. If I read 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week, I've applied 2.5 hours of practice in 5 days. No, an hour, and I said 15 minutes a day, I meant 30 minutes a day. If I did that 30 minutes a day, that's 2.5 hours.
Okay.
All right? But is that possible? If I did 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes at night, that's still 30 minutes. I don't care how you look at it.
Yeah. Whatever way works for you.
Whatever way works for you. Even if I just said 15 minutes a day, that's an hour and 15 minutes a week.
Right.
It's something.
You picked up the book.
You picked up the book. You know?
Yeah.
So from a spiritual side, I apply probably 30 to 45 minutes a day, between 30 minutes and an hour a day. It could be all throughout the day. Some of it's in the morning, some of it's in the night, some of it's in the afternoon, some of it's sprinkled throughout the day. It all depends. Sometimes when I'm driving, sometimes when I'm sitting doing nothing. I wake up at 4 in the morning, I go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. It doesn't matter. I'm focusing on the foundation that makes me move, and that's the spiritual side. By doing that and applying it or practicing it, that's why it's a habit for me. That's why I do business unusual.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
See?
yeah.
And so that's what I'm going to encourage. To the non-believer, to somebody who doesn't believe, to somebody, start practicing something.
Yeah.
Apply it. Try it. You might be surprised. So,
You might have a secret talent.
it might have a secret talent.
Never know.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
sharing, just sharing everything, your nuggets, your wisdom, your knowledge, your encouragement, your inspiration. But that is all the time we have, and we've appreciated
No, my pleasure.
so greatly having this conversation too. Are there any just last words of advice or anything, any commentary that you'd like to add?
I think the one thing that I want everybody to really emphasize, and I talked about impact. We're in a messed up society right now. We are in a situation where people have a dislike for each other just because. We have a dislike for folks because of the color of their skin. We have a dislike for people because of, their gender or what they want as their gender. We have a dislike for people just because they have a certain political belief. We have a dislike for people just because they wear a ring in their ear or their nose, or whether they have a certain tattoo. It doesn't matter. That's little stuff. And so we're at a point now where if we don't focus collectively on how to make things better, it's only going to get worse. So whether you believe or whether you don't believe. You got to believe me when I say this. The only way we'll get out of that mess is if you have the spiritual side fight the human side of things. Because the human side is what's messing it up. The spiritual side will clean it up.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm saying to people. Understand that the spiritual side has a whole lot of power that we don't give it credit. We don't give the credit for. So let's just, if nothing else, just try it.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get it in a day.
Yeah.
This side of me did not happen in a day. I had to get sick and tired of being sick and tired for it to really get to me and say, I got to do something different. And only then, that's when things changed. So that's really what it's all about. Try it, because I believe, just like my father said, if we give the world the best we have, the best will come back to us. And there's a whole lot of people that want the best and want to give their best. Those are my words. I'm sticking to it.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
All
And
right.
where can people find you on social media?
They could find me on Instagram, or they could find me on LinkedIn, or they could find me on Facebook, they could find me on Twitter. You could either look for The Warren Winston or Warren Winston. It's very simple. You can type it in. If you type in Warren Winston, it'll even pop up The Warren Winston. That's where they can find me on IG, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn.
Okay.
That's where they can find me. And then on my website, warrenwinston.com. That's
Hey.
it. Okay?
Click that, everyone. And do you have any upcoming projects or events?
I
coming up?
am working on a couple of projects right now. I'm working with a project that's actually a trade mission. So I'm excited about that. I have a project that keeps coming in and out. We're going to figure out how we're going to make that happen. But it's really working with men, helping men to become more gentlemen. Not to take anything away from men, but I really am about helping men to bring that gentleman back, and so that will be the focus. So that's another project that's happening. But yeah, I've got some. You go on the website, you'll start to see a whole lot of speaking engagements and find out where I am. Yeah. Okay.
Wow, thank you for sharing.
Sure.
And best of wishes and blessings with as you continue to journey.
Thank you very much, and same to you as well.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in, Queens and Kings. I'm Marshella Thomas, and what better way to keep it real than with real topics? You all have a beautiful night. Take care. Drink water.
That's right.
And as I always say, at the end of every day, the most important thing to remember is always remember to give love.
That's right.
Peace.
Peace.